It's me, Erica, and for today's video, I'm going to share with you guys my preliminary reflection about Torrentera and Philippine Sourcebook. It has a lesson 1 to 5 for Torrentera and topic 1 to 4 from Philippines History Sourcebook and one supplemental material from our dear instructor, Sir Roland S. Dalaga. So let's start. The first lesson that I'm going to share with you guys is a lesson 1 from Torrentera, which is entitled An Introduction to Philippine Historiography, Sources and Discourses. The mode of reflection I use for this topic is microscopy. So the work of historians consists of finding out and procuring all the possible sources about the period or aspect of empires. Knowing the stories about history is really interesting because you will be able to come across old traditions and cultures and the people's way of life in the old times. When you say historiography of the Philippines, refers to the studies, sources, critical methods, and interpretations used by scholars to study the history of the country. And also, it plays a vital role in our lives because where we are able to compare how we live today versus how they lived before. Primary sources and secondary sources are two words that struck me the most while reading the document. The example of primary sources are the literary descriptions, the artistic images, and the cartographic testimonies are verbal or iconic sources able to provide other information, while the secondary sources are a type of source that generally includes evaluation of primary sources. The way historians write history is that they emphasize the value of primary sources. When we study history as a student, we gain a fresh perspective on our society and ourselves. With the aid of these two sources, we can readily say that whether the source came from primary sources or secondary sources, depending on the circumstances. So let's move on to the second lesson, History of the Philippine Islands. While reading the document, there is a sentence that struck me, which is, they considered one woman whom they married as a legitimate wife and the mistress of the house, and she was styled Inasaba. Chefs with women chefs, timagos with those of that rank, and slaves with those of their own class, were and are commonly and generally married by these natives. Marriage life is quite alarming nowadays because some of married couples are happy in building their own family, some of which is critical due to having an affair or mistress, which leads to becoming a broken family, which can cause a major problem. Being married is a bit challenging because you will be dealing with a new environment in which only the husband and wife will be moving to a new place, building their own family. Even though married life has a good effect on human life, but having a legitimate wife is an opportunity for those women who have a contented husband or partner. But there is still a chance that the partner can't be loyal to their wife, such as having an affair or mistress. It's a bit sad because it affects the children of a certain family and can cause suicide, absences from school, anxiety, bad habits, attention-seeking behaviors, development disorder, and aggressiveness. On the contrary, the marriage life of the natives in the past is still present these days, in which it's still the same. The only difference is that the law, wherein if the married couple is being separated, the law will interfere to be responsible for the case of the couple, in which of them can file for a divorce so that their marriage are no longer be legal. Also, if the couple has a child, the law will arrange its custody so that each of them will be given a chance. So, if the couple has a child, the law will arrange its custody so that each of them will be given a chance to decide where the child wants to go. So, the third lesson is the Manonggol jar. In this lesson, I use the mode of reflection, which is the mirroring. So in this lesson, it talks about the Manonggol jar, the importance of Manonggol jar here in our country. It is one of the numerous jars found in a cave believed to be burial site in Tabon Cave at Lipun Point, Quezon, Palawan by Dr. Robert P. Fox and Miguel Antonio in 1962. The Manonggol jar has a 5 lines and complex designs that reflect the artistry of the early Filipinos. It demonstrates how important maritime culture to the people of the country. The Manonggol jar contains 3 main features: the boat driver and the soul. 2 human images were set, 2 souls on a voyage toward the afterlife. My experience when I was in grade 9, we have a student teacher who gave us one of our photos with a message on it. When I saw it, I immediately remembered the goodness that she shared with us at the time, and I keep it because it is one of my remembrance. It symbolized love and importance to me as her student. Just like the Manonggol jar, it is very important in our Philippine history. And I conclude also that since traces of Austronesian history and culture were found in many ethnic tribes and regions throughout the Philippines, the Manonggol jar is seen as living proof of the shared cultural heritage that the Filipinos and their Austronesian predecessors shared. In fact, the Manonggol jar represented the National Museum's duty to preserve the Philippines' rich culture heritage. It was also a potential demonstration of the power of art to convey a nation's history, tradition, and culture regardless of how straightforward or complex its form. And the fourth lesson that I'm going to share with you guys is the lesson 4, the Laguna copper plate. The mode of reflection I use for this topic is microscoping. While I'm reading this topic, there's a word that got my attention. Words rather that got my attention and give me some idea that this word is really important now in our generations, which is the artifact or artificial and the inscriptions. Artifact or artificial is anything manufactured by a human being, like tools or clothes made by people from any time and location. They are considered artifacts. Inscription, they mostly represent significant historical events and are inscribed on rocks, stones, buildings, walls, metals, etc. It gives us more information about the happenings in the situation by presenting the evidence that we found in a certain place or location. This lesson gave me a chance to express my ideas about this topic, to cite my understanding, and to share my knowledge regarding this lesson. The Laguna Copper Plate is a very important document in Philippines on 120 years of this year. It serves as evidence that our country and our ancestors are already civilized before our country has been discovered by Ferdinand Magellan and the Spaniards. The next lesson is the lesson 5, Duties of the Katipunan of the Sons of the People, or KKK. The duties of the Sons of the People, or KKK, the Bonifacio Decalogue, are still in use today and are written on monuments despite not having been published by Andres Bonifacio. The Decalogue of the Katipunan, or Duties of the Sons of the People, was penned. It was created with the intention of illustrating the official tenets of the kataas-taasan, kagalang-galangan, katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan, or KKK. Often known as Katipunan, a group that fight for the independence of the Philippines from Spain. On the other hand, Bonifacio thought that the Emilio Jacinto primer on Cartilla was superior. Bonifacio decided to employ Jacinto's ideas rather than his own. It is obvious that defining love to God is also describing love to the country. As stated in one of the Decalogue's words, bear always in mind that the genuine love of God is love of the country, which is also true love of man. In the present, a virus is waging undetectable assault on our planet. The Decalogue of Bonifacio's major mission is to trump over any person or virus, but its main goal is to save the native territory by offering a refuge of safety to anybody in need of love and comfort, rather than by constantly declaring war. In spite of all these obstacles we experience in life, particularly when we battle COVID-19, which has rules we must follow, such as wearing face masks, abstaining from drinking, and maintaining social distance in order to avoid the virus. God is always there to lead and assist us. The front lines who are constantly there to guard us and make sure we are. It's very difficult to deal with this battle. The next topic that I'm going to share with you guys is from the Philippine History Source Book, which is the topic 1, Soul Boats, a Filipino Journey of Self-Discovery. Mode of reflection I use for this topic is telescoping. A boat coffin burial is a mode of disposal of the dead in hollowed out pieces of logs, generally in the shape of a boat. This was a widespread practice throughout Southeast Asia from prehistoric times. It is known to exist in certain areas of the Philippines to the present. One of the situations that I can relate to this lesson is the way of burial is the cremation. In today's situation, we face a big problem here in our country, which is fighting against the COVID-19. Cremation is their choice to burial the dead body that was infected by the virus. When a body is cremated, it is incinerated so that all the parts of the dead body remains are ashes. They put the ashes in a jar so that the family can keep it and bring it in the home. For me, I'd rather to choose the traditional burial because it is the most traditional and common burial option offered by cemeteries, in which casketed or cremated remains are buried in the ground, and also giving respect and peace burial of dead person. The next topic that I'm going to share with you guys is a topic to Customs of the Tagalogs from Philippine History Source Book. The mode of reflection I used for this topic is microscopy. The lesson was all about the custom of the Tagalogs, are a section of longer monographs written by the chroniclers of the Spanish expeditions to the Philippines in the early 16th and 17th century. The main topics covered in the customs of the Tagalogs are government, the administration of justice, slaves, inheritance, and dowries. Juan de Plasencia was a Spanish priest of the Franciscan order. On July 2, 1578, he traveled to the Philippines with the first batch of the missionaries and was given the responsibility by the King of Spain to record the traditions and custom of the colonized people. Plasencia also mentioned the local Tagalogs dowry system, which involved males giving money to a woman's parents prior to her marriage. Which the issue I can relate to the topic is that the tribe of Muslims. They are one who is still continue doing these traditions where the males giving money to the woman's parents as the respect to the parents of the woman. This tradition of Muslim people are still present in today's generation. It's still be seen do for the next generation. Move on to the topic 3. Album de Filipinas, ca 1870, Biblioteca Nacional de España. The mode of reflection I use for this topic is memory. This album was published in Barcelona in 1895, depicting in photographs and essays the daily life and custom of the people and landscape of the Philippines. At that time, a colony of the Spanish Empire, the book was recently translated into English and edited by Feliz Noel Rodriguez and will publish in 2014. So, it continues to provide an interesting insight into the late 19th century colonial days of rural Filipino life. Album is very important thing in our life. We use this as a tool in collecting our memories with our loved ones, family, relatives, and friends. With the virus attack our country, everything has changed. I can't go out with my friends because of the quarantine. I can no longer going out with them without face mask and alcohol. But despite that experience, those pictures that taken before the pandemic reminds me the importance of friendship I have. The album gave me a throwback experience before the pandemic. I've also learned that the album is significant in our country because it was the source during the 19th century, give us the knowledge that one of the earliest photo album featuring the Philippines was this one. Now let's move on to the topic 4 from Philippine History Source Book. Topic 4, Cartilla, written by Emilio Jacinto. The lesson I have read was all about the Cartilla, or in English, teachings, written by Emilio Jacinto, the brains of the Katipunan. This is regarded as one of the key records of the secret group, the Katipunan. Jacinto was born in Tondo, Manila in 1875. The sentence that struck me in this topic is the maralita, mayaman, mangmang, marunong, lahat dito ay magkakapantay at tunay na magkakapatid. According to the statement, each of us has a role to play in our nation regardless of our culture, personalities, disabilities, or socio-economic status. Discrimination is a problem in which I can particularly connect to this topic. Discrimination is the practice of treating people unfairly or unfavorably based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, sexual orientation. For me as a student, I too encounter prejudice due to my appearance. Yet, despite everyone's unfavorable remarks about me, I still manage to move closer to my objectives and pursue my interests. Julio Jacinto remarked, lahat dito ay magkakapantay-pantay at tunay na magkakapatid. Regardless of a person's status or disability, we are all fair and equal in God's eyes. The letter by Emilio Jacinto teaches us that we Filipinos should be aware, respect each Filipino's ability to help us and better ourselves. It also directs us to be more productive and to have faith in the entire process. The last topic that I'm going to share with you guys is the supplemental materials from our dear instructor, Sir Roland S. Delagan, which is the lecture notes for History 11. The mode of reflection I use for this topic is microscopy. One of the supplemental material I choose from our instructor is the lecture notes for History 11, which talk about the denial or repression of reading, synoptic reading, deconstructive reading, redemptive reading, and last, the dialogic reading. But the one that got my attention is the philosophy of history. The philosophy of history talks about the ways historians explain thoughts about history or how they convey information about a topic. It enables us to gain a better understanding of how to reflect our current beliefs and values to the previous generation. In the philosophy of history, there are 4 ways of explaining the topic. It explains the important causes of specific events, presents the broadest development. It explains historical forces, what moves them and their direction, and reflects current societal beliefs and values. It talks about examining the theoretical foundation of the practice, application, and social consequences of history and historiography, which are similar to other areas of the study such as philosophy of science or philosophy of religion in 2 respects. As a student, I have learned that reflecting on current societal beliefs and values in history really help us in enhancing our knowledge and explaining the topic that we want to explain to the audience. Also learned that lecture notes of History 11 have a big role in our lives that can be applied in today's generation. That's all for today's video, and thank you for watching.